Friends, we're live. Making sure my microphone looks good, and it is. CFLW, the show for this Monday, June the 2nd. I hope you're doing well. Coming up, we've got an active pattern to talk about here. We are going to be in store for widespread showers and storms really the remainder of the week. Yes, every afternoon we'll bring something a little bit different. We'll break that down for you guys. You can see the mess of storms situated off of our west coast. So we'll talk about kind of what's happening today with the opportunity for some strong and even some isolated severe storms. We'll look at the rest of the week forecast. I've got some city by city forecasts for you guys, and a look at hurricane season. Obviously, most of you probably know we jumped into officially the start of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season yesterday. Quiet so far, but I'm going to give you some of my overall opinions of the season, and we'll break that down, how that could impact us here in Central Florida. As always, CFLW, the show, sponsored by the leading law firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. We're in storm season now, friends, and when a storm rolls across your area, they can walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. You get hail damage, wind damage. We've had a tropical storm or hurricane walk through. They can have you covered. Go to leanonmelaw.com if you would like more information. As always, love to hear from you guys, just like Kevin watching from Lakeland this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Kevin. Hope you're doing well. Let's get into what's going to be going on across our area for today. We'll start off with a live look from the radar out of the Tampa Bay area. Again, thunderstorms are sitting off the coast. We have our old frontal boundary off to our south. So right now, some of this moisture is beginning to push in. We have a twofold situation. We have our old frontal boundary off to the south, and you can show you that on surface analysis here. And then we have what we call a shortwave trough, which is rounding the base of an extremely elongated trough in the eastern United States. So you have surface energy with this stalled boundary, and then you have mid and upper level support coming in, and we're going to get waves of storms that will kick along and north of that boundary. Right now, again, these storms are just sitting off the coastline, but they're beginning to work their way in right across the skyway from the St. Pete area back towards portions of Manatee and Sarasota counties, Anna Maria Island, Bradenton, Bayshore Gardens, Sarasota, Holmes Beach, Cortez. All of this, and you can see the direction of the storms on the polygons here moving inland at the hour. So it is going to get wet and stormy. Pinellas, and then deeper into Hillsborough County, and then deeper into Manatee and Sarasota County. Special marine warning right now. There are going to be some stronger storms that'll be pulsing up here as we get through the heat of the day. Eventually, these storms will also kick in. We're going to have a bit of a sea breeze interaction as well. And overall, the risk of thunderstorms will be fairly high as we get into the remainder of the afternoon hours, not just along the west coast, but in interior sections for you guys as well. Visible satellite imagery, live temperatures on the board for you right now. Obviously, very thick cloud coverage out there at the hour, which has really kept temperatures down. Again, you know, behind our front that came through yesterday, well, actually over the weekend, we had much drier air behind it, and now much cooler conditions with either the rain or the cloud coverage. And I got to tell you something, like in Orlando as an example, you know, dew points are in the upper 60s. The air is not extremely humid. It's not a bad feel to the air right now. The dew point in Ocala is 57. That's not too shabby. Relatively dry air for early June up in Daytona Beach and Ormond Beach. Again, you have a dew point right now of 66. So temperatures at the hour are very reasonable. A lot of low 80s, a couple of mid 80s, and then you get back into the thick cloud coverage in portions of Hernando and Pasco and Pinellas and Hillsborough and Polk counties, and you have some 70s right now. The Brandon-Seffner area just 73 degrees at 1 o'clock here on June 2nd. How about that? Tampa 77, St. Pete in at 75, Kissimmee, Orlando 81, downtown is in at 82. A lot of lower to mid 80s along the Brevard County coast or fringe of the Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach area, and at 84, where we have more sunshine at the hour. It is a little bit warmer up there. This is the loop over the last 6 hours. St. Augustine's temperature never got that low, but you get the idea that actually where we have more sunshine today, it's going to be warmer. That's right. The I-10 corridor in Jacksonville could get up above 90 degrees, but we're going to get nowhere near that for today. We are going to have ample moisture in play. We're going to have the opportunity for some strong to severe storms. This is what it looks like on the enhanced satellite imagery with the radar data involved as well. Again, a fair amount of lightning. The storms actually juiced up a little bit earlier today as one of those impulses of mid-level energy rolled across that frontal boundary off to the south. But eventually these storms will build up farther to the north. And this is going to give us a good opportunity again for storms later today. So this is the risk for severe storms. Now look, we're talking about the storms all along the West Coast right now, but later this afternoon through the early evening hours, we actually flip it where we're going to have more storm coverage and the opportunity for the better chances for strong to severe storms from the I-4 corridor towards I-95. Your light green from the SPC is just your general thunderstorm risk. Your darker green is that marginal risk, 1 out of 5. I don't expect anything to be organized for today as far as severe storms go. Most storms will be below severe criteria, but still could produce winds of 40 to 55 miles an hour and some pea to maybe dime-sized hail. And again, that risk will encompass the Orlando metro area up towards Sanford and Civito County, the Oak Hill area of the southern side of Volusia County. Then you've got all of Brevard County, a good chunk of Orange County, eastern and central Civito County, all of Osceola, the far southeast sides of Polk County, and all of Indian River County here in central Florida under that marginal risk. Again, main threat will be some winds 40 to 55 miles an hour, and some smaller sized hail. Nothing outrageously organized for later today, but again, it's very interesting because at this point in time, you know, obviously the most impactful storms are along the West Coast, but they'll begin to drive in and redevelop along the East Coast a little bit later in the day as well. This is what it looks like on the visible satellite imagery across the Southeast. And again, it looks rather benign, but when I put this into motion for you guys, you're just going to see that there's this broad loop in the east, and that is just allowing energy that's coming all the way down from the Great Lakes to kind of spin around the base of that trough. And you can almost see a little bit of isolated spin here in the northern and central sides of the Gulf. There's just more instability here, and it's just going to be driving right over the peninsula. So really it is central and south Florida that's going to get all of the activity. If I zoom back out just a little bit here and I bring on the SPC risk for day one, you notice again there's nothing else in the southeast. It's actually back into the plains in the Intermountain West. So the first thing I want to do is break down what I expect for the rest of today. Then we'll get into the couple-day forecast for you guys. And then I want to take a quick look at what we're going to be talking about tropically, right? Both for the entire season and what could be potentially developing here in the first couple of weeks of June. As always, love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below what's been happening. If you have a specific question about the forecast, please feel free to drop it in the comment section below. Of course, this is why I do these live shows. We'd love to interact with you guys. Take a quick second, just say hi. Let me know what's been happening. Of course, regardless, thank you so much for taking a quick second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you guys have not as of yet. So this is going to be our HERB model, our high resolution rapid refresh for the remainder of this Monday. Hey Blue Goose, how you doing? Mostly cloudy, but 85 degrees, a little bit warmer again up in St. Augustine, away from the thicker cloud coverage and the better opportunity for storms for today. Can't rule out a couple of storms there up in St. Johns County, but generally speaking, it's going to be our southern areas of Central Florida and especially back down to the south. I mean, we could have some pretty potent storms well down Fort Lauderdale, Miami, into the Keys, portions of the Bahamas. But again, we have the opportunity for some intense storms in a few spots as well. All right, so let's break down what the HERB model is going to be bringing us the remainder of the day. Going to let it loop up one more time, and then we'll start at the beginning. Starting it off at 2 o'clock. Again, still concentrated along our far southwest areas, portions of Pinellas, coastal Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota counties. Those storms will continue to push inland, right? But they'll be weakening a bit as they do. Beginning around the 5 o'clock hour, we'll probably see some isolated development across the I-95 corridor, and that will be the first beginnings of the opportunity for a few strong to severe storms. Again, the heat of the day now, we're not going to be outrageously hot for today, but that shortwave trough that I've mentioned is producing more instability in the mid and the upper levels of the atmosphere than what we typically see. So it's not just going to be surface-based instability with the sea breeze. We have cooler air aloft, which is going to allow for more unstable environment across all of Central Florida, not just today, but for the next couple of days as well. We are in a very active forecast, friends, for the remainder of the week, especially the next few days. So just get prepared for that. 6 o'clock on the HRRR model, again, strong storms developing across I-95. They should back build a little bit farther off towards the west, right? And we'll get the opportunity for some storms in the metro Orlando area. Could easily be at the 6 o'clock hour, but 7, 8 o'clock. And again, some of the higher resolution short-term models through the 10 and 11 o'clock hour actually try to build the storms back west. So we should get initial development of the storms across I-95, probably a few more storms, again, developing 5 to 6, a few storms over the I-4 corridor, and then these storms kind of conglomerating and back building to the west into Lake and Sumter and Polk counties, maybe into Sumter and Citrus and Hernando and Pasco and Hillsborough counties deep into the evening hours. They should be waning intensity as they do so, but certainly will still contain some lightning as they push back off towards the west. So it's a very interesting scenario the remainder of the day, because again, right now, you have all the concentration of storms along our west coast, but in a couple of hours, the storms will fire up across portions of I-95, especially Brevard and Indian River counties. You get to Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach, and north towards Palm Coast, probably dry today. And then those storms again back building west across I-4, merging, they'll be more kind of isolated here at that 6, 7 o'clock time frame, but by 8 and 9 o'clock, after we lose the heat of the day, these storms should kind of all evolve into a line in some form and then work their way back off towards the west. That's what I expect the remainder of the day. And again, especially Orlando south and east, the opportunity for some of those storms to be on the strong to severe side. This is a live look outside to Winter Garden for you right now. Again, relatively overcast conditions, even this far north into Orange County. A little bit more of a thinner veil of clouds. There'll be some filtered sunshine from time to time. You can see the temperatures on the bottom of your screen. And again, you're going to see numbers all over the place for some spots pushing 90 degrees to other areas in the 70s. Most of Metro Orlando right now in the low to mid 80s. But again, not rain-bearing clouds as of yet here in the Winter Garden area. Live look outside to Conway. This is southeast of downtown Orlando. Same kind of scenario, relatively overcast. More than anything, mid and high level cloud coverage at the hour, but don't expect a lot of sun in Metro Orlando the remainder of the day. This should keep temperatures well into the 80s for daytime highs. Not expecting us to get enough sun to punch back up to around 90. Again, because we've actually had a bit of a gentle north wind and now it's a little bit more out of the west than anything, the dew points and the relative humidities aren't outrageously high for the beginning of June. So it's not a bad feel to the air, but does it feel like it's April? It certainly does not. And then to the attractions area we go. Again, live look outside right now there, looking back towards the Walt Disney World property in the Magic Kingdom. This camera is just 1 mile away. Again, relatively overcast skies. No rain there in the Lake Buena Vista area at the hour, but we'll get the opportunity for a few more showers and storms later into the afternoon hours as well. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for taking a quick second and hitting that like button for me. Now we're going to get into the forecast for the next couple of days. We'll take a look at a couple of city forecasts, and then we'll break down what I expect for the hurricane season. So that's coming up. Let me get back over to the weather computer and get going with this. Now, all right. So let's take the HRRR model out as far as it can go. So this should take us into Wednesday morning, and then we'll pick up the GFS model from there. First thing I want to note, get prepared to have the umbrellas in the afternoon hours. Get prepared for the opportunity for there to even be some isolated showers and storms in the morning hours. And just get prepared for an overall wet forecast. All right. You can see as this model runs out through Wednesday morning what I'm talking about. We'll probably lift that stationary boundary, which stalled out early this weekend, south to the north. We're also still going to have that mid and upper level support on the base of that trough that I've mentioned. And so we're just going to continue to see storms spinning in, developing, moving across the peninsula, keeping us pretty wet and stormy. Not only just the next couple of days, but probably most of this work week. My rain and storm chances are above seasonal averages for sure. Again, we're in the wet season now. We've got our sea breezes coming in each and every day. We're getting more support out of the mid and upper levels. The next couple of days will provide us better showers and storms. Now, unlike today, where the storms are going to be pushing in from west to east, again, this afternoon, and then developing east and back building west beginning tomorrow. And again, some of this activity could come in a little bit earlier tomorrow afternoon. I expect the storms with a southeast surface wind to push from southeast to northwest in kind of a broad spiraling fashion. So this is what it looks like at noon tomorrow. And then watch the storms build in through the remainder of the afternoon hours with a movement from our southeast areas into our northwest areas. And again, enough instability where some of these storms could be strong to severe for tomorrow afternoon as well, right? And then just continuing to push off to the west, where storms could be more prolific tomorrow, late afternoon and evening along our west coast, from Levy and Citrus to Hernando, Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas counties, all the way down to Manatee and Bradenton as well. Scattered showers remain, but again, you can see as we head overnight into Wednesday morning, the opportunity for another band to be moving back in, not severe, but more rain to kick off your Wednesday. Wednesday could be very wet and somewhat stormy across the area. But again, on the HRRR model, we're kind of changing the direction here because surface winds should be out of the south and to the east. This is what it looks like when I bring in those wind vectors. And I make this a little bit bigger for you guys so it's easier to see. And I'll loop that up for you as well. So again, right now, if we have a bit of a wind and it's been fairly light and variable for today, it's mainly out of the west. But beginning tomorrow, you're going to start to see these wind arrows turn in a southeast fashion, right? And that should allow this moisture, which is back in the western Atlantic, to spin back into the area. Notice again, it'll take a second for the wind arrows to fully come onto this map, but you're going to start to see that these winds will be onshore along our east coast. And that is what's going to drive the moisture back in from east to west. But with this old boundary, with all the mid and upper level instability the next couple of days, it's going to be quite active across the area, and the opportunity for some strong to severe storms will be lingering across our area in the coming days as well. All right. Hopefully here it'll cooperate. So this is just a snapshot of Wednesday morning at 3 a.m. For some reason, the model's not fully loading up all the wind barbs, but that's okay. You can clearly see, though, these are surface winds. We've swung it all the way out of the east, probably a bit more southeast to due east. I would say at least an east to southeast wind for the most part, but that's picking up more moisture from the south. And again, driving in those storms, making it quite wet outside. We'll switch over real quickly to the NAM model. And this will take us out into Wednesday evening. Now, this is still a high resolution model. And again, great to hear from you guys. Please let me know in the comment section below what's been going on. I appreciate Kevin and Blue Goose taking a quick second saying hi. Again, your interaction supports the channel, but it also, you've got me live right now. You got a specific question, let me know in the comments. You just want to say hi, I appreciate that. All that interaction really does support the channel more than you think. I've got my Lean Law tumbler. I've got my Publix Diet Green Tea fired up and ready to go. And again, so this is a whole different model. This is the NAM model, the North American. We were looking at the HRRR, the high resolution rapid refresh, but do you see how wet and stormy? And again, more of a southeast to northwest motion with the storms beginning tomorrow that we will see. Waves of storm, some strong to severe, winds the biggest threat, but with that overall broad rotation, we got to watch out for some rotating storms, especially along the coast as well. So again, this takes you through Wednesday evening. If we start in the wee hours of Wednesday morning where the HRRR left off, You can see the active weather early, and then the storms refiring again on Wednesday afternoon, earlier in the day. I do expect more storms and more coverage tomorrow and Wednesday, earlier in the day. Hey, Chessie, how you doing? Spring Hill in the house. Lots of clouds, but peaking sun near 90 degrees, one of the warmer spots. Appreciate you tuning in. A lot of rain for St. Augustine. Yep, look, it's going to be active. We are going to get a fair amount of storms and a fair amount of rain. We'll take a look at the rainfall total potential coming up as well. All right, risk for severe storms for tomorrow. At this point in time, the Storm Prediction Center does not have a risk for our area yet. A lot of the times, this is a day of thing where they upgrade the risk. So what happened today where we got upgraded to a marginal I-4 south and east. So it's not going to surprise me if some of our area falls under a marginal risk tomorrow. Right now, this light green is just your general thunderstorm risk, non-severe, not strong storms, but now it's the entire state. You get the idea that it's going to be a lot more active. What the heck is that? Did they really fire up something, or is that just a joke? Wow. Could this be No, what is that? Well, that would be indicative of there being an opportunity for a, the easiest way to do it is I actually have the Hurricane Center's website up over here. I'll be damned. That is a non-tropical area of low pressure forecast to form near or offshore of the southeast United States during the next couple of days. The low could gradually develop some subtropical or tropical characteristics while moving northeast at 10 to 15. So did you guys see that huge spin, right, that we were looking at on both the HUR and the NAM models? Well, literally in real time, the Hurricane Center has actually issued their first potential for development here. It's only a 10% chance, and it's moving away from our area, so appreciably it's probably not going to have any actual impacts, and there's nothing there right now. They're talking about all of this lifting north with everything spiraling in and potentially a low-level center of circulation developing off of the Jacksonville-St. Augustine coastline and then moving east following the Gulf Stream up the coast, right? But there you go. This is why you guys tune in. You get the information first, literally. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Winter Garden in the house. Appreciate it. We got a camera in Winter Garden, and thank you for also saying that. Hit the likes. Thanks again. Mike, I appreciate you saying that. Again, if you guys are just tuning in live, literally as I was talking about the forecast, we have our first potential development area from the National Hurricane Center. And I actually have some graphics to talk about the overall hurricane outlook because I did that over on the Media Mundo channel yesterday. Of course, I have another channel called Media Mundo, cover the Caribbean and the Bahamas. Yesterday was June 1st. And so we covered kind of a lot of my overall thoughts for the season. And now we'll do that here on the Central Florida Weather Channel as well. Yeah, I hear you, Mike, and I'll do the best that I can. And obviously, love the fact that there's so much activity over there at the Cape for all the different launches. And, weather is extremely important. And I do keep that in mind. So thanks for reminding me with that as well. But very interesting. Well, we'll take a look at the GFS model here as well now that we have this area. But again, just a new first of the season watch area from the Hurricane Center for Tropical Development. Close to home, but this should all be moving away. Now again, in the short term, this system as it tries to develop is going to bring us some very active weather for the coming days. Probably some pretty gusty winds along the coast as well. Obviously, if we actually pick up a true center of circulation there, we're going to see a lot of wind along our northeast coastline, maybe some beach erosion, things like that. It's something that obviously now that this has been issued by the Hurricane Center, I'll keep an eye on. So let's see what the GFS model kind of does with this. And again, we already looked at the HUR and the NAM and how active it's going to be. But we've got mid and upper level vorticity support or spin from that shortwave trough. We have our surface-based boundary, which stalled out south. And you can just see the mess that's going to be coming here. See, I've got this out until I think Thursday so far. Again, it doesn't look very organized, but potentially towards the end of that, we'll go out a couple more days. Take it out to the 8th. Why not? But you can just kind of see. It'll take just a second for it to fully load up. But yeah, I mean, look, there's some activity out there. Obviously, it also looks like there's another weak front coming in at that point in time. If anything, that should shove it farther offshore. But I would expect this to bring a really sloppy end of the week to Georgia and the Carolinas and potentially up towards Jacksonville. We'll see how this plays out. But there you go. Very interesting. You know, again, live here on the old CFLW channel, your first potential area. Just a 10% chance from the hurricane center. Let's see here. Because this is not considered to be a quote-unquote active system, there's no actual discussion on it that I can bring up for you guys. But again, updating in real time. So there you go. Back over to the risk for severe storms. This, again, is going to be for your Wednesday. It's still a general thunderstorm risk, but again, it's not going to shock me if the Storm Prediction Center upgrades this potentially for Wednesday to a marginal risk for some areas, just like they did today. So strong, severe storms, widespread storms, especially tomorrow and Wednesday, with the isolated severe threat the remainder of the day. All right, so let's get into the hurricane discussion. This is fantastic that this actually happened here because it's a great segue. Widespread outlook. First of all, you know, this whole boundary has produced a heck of a lot of storms. I mean, look at all this lightning right now, all the way through the Bahamas, pushing southeast. So there's a lot of energy here. And with that southeast surface wind developing, it is going to take all of this and push it back up to the north. It's not crazy surprising. What's interesting is down the road, the GFS model especially is much more aggressive with a potential system in the Western Caribbean about a week from now and potentially lifting north into the second week of June. Now, there are flaws with the GFS model in that area here early in the season, and we'll highlight that coming up. But first of all, let's look at the Orlando forecast for the remainder of the next 3 days. 60% chance tomorrow, 70 Wednesday and Thursday. Those numbers might even be a little bit low, to be quite honest. Maybe it's even 80 or 90. It's high coverage, scattered to numerous storms, heavier rain, lightning will always come with this stuff that we're talking about in the next few days. But obviously some winds, again, mainly 40 to 55 miles an hour, maybe some small pea to dime-sized hail. Hopefully nothing stronger than that. I'll monitor it, but because of the cloud coverage, because of the earlier onset of rain, temperatures the next 3 days in Orlando will actually stay in the 80s. Tampa's forecast will be wet. It'll be stormy. The storms will probably not develop there until later in the day. So in most cases, they'll be able to get to around 90 for a daytime high. But look how wet I have it along the West Coast. 70 tomorrow, 90 on Wednesday, 70 on Thursday. The bottom line is we are just going to be wet, stormy the next several afternoons. Temperatures for morning lows there in the low to mid 70s. Okay, here are the Atlantic storms. And again, you're going to see the Media Mundo graphics here, but we can work with what we got. These are your 21 named storms of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. We'll start off with Andrea. Hopefully we get nowhere near Wendy, but again, there is the list for you guys here. Obviously, if we get past this list, there is an alternate list that the Hurricane Center uses. We're no longer using the Greek alphabet. It's just a secondary list beginning with another A named storm. This is your overall outlook. The average is on the left-hand side of your screen. On average over the last 30 years, 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, 3 major. NOAA's forecast, at least as of now, is 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, 3 to 5 being major. Again, major hurricanes are category 3 or higher. So they have forecasts of at least 3 major hurricanes this season. The 2024 season is on the right-hand side of your screen. So what we saw last year, we still got to 18 named storms, despite the fact that we had an unprecedented drought of named storms from mid-August to mid-September last year. The most interesting thing to me, my friends, is this. I'm going to step over here to do it. Out of the 18 named storms, 11 became hurricanes. That is an extremely high percentage, over 60% of the named storms becoming hurricanes much more than the 50% average over the last 30 years. And again, we got 5 major hurricanes out of the 2024 season. If you ask me, based on what I've seen, the fact that we're now in an INSO neutral pattern rather than being in La Nina, although there are still cooler than average temperatures off of the west coast of South America, and our sea surface temperatures are still above average, and there is the opportunity to fall back into a slight La Nina throughout the hurricane season. But I think these numbers are very appropriate at this point in time. Most everything that I've seen, actually everything that I've seen, has pointed to an above average season. Okay, and even NOAA says there's a 60% chance of an above average season. But again, you have to ask yourself, what is an average season? Because the last 10 seasons, 8 of them, you could say, could be potentially hyperactive. Now, June storms typically develop close to home, right? We don't have the main development region of the Atlantic active yet. We don't have the tropical waves holding together through the Atlantic basin. We have a lot of Saharan dust, or that Saharan air layer, which plays a factor. We've had several plumes of that already in the Caribbean, another big one coming in right now. So our development areas in June are in the Western Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and along the far Western Atlantic off of our coastline and through the Georgia and the Carolina coastline as well. These are your typical movements where storms in the Caribbean traverse the Yucatan and go into the western side of the Gulf. You have the other one where it kind of gets picked up in this trough pattern and gets pushed pretty quickly north and east across our peninsula through the Gulf Stream and across the East Coast. Or the most common is development in the southwest Gulf of Mexico that does pull across our area and then back into the Western Atlantic. But all formation zones typically are very close to home this time of the year. Now, one of the professional meteorological organizations that we have a subscription to, called Weather Bell, and I use those graphics a lot over on the Media Mundo page, they come up with a forecast for ACE. Now, ACE is an acronym for Accumulated Cyclone Energy. It's not proprietary to Weather Bell, but they use and they give it an ACE forecast for the hurricane season. So what ACE is, it's one number. It takes into effect how strong storms get and how long they last, right? So a very long-lasting, intense storm has a very high accumulated cyclone energy, and a weaker storm that doesn't last very long has a lower one. They are forecasting analogous to the 2018 hurricane season, kind of based off of pre-season, conditions, that our area should see above average ACE for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, meaning above average activity and probably above average intensity of the storms. That includes most of the Gulf Coast, but all of our area. I mean, all the entire peninsula, right on through the East Coast, and then up the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, including most of the Bahamas, potentially some below average activity in the Southern Caribbean, Southwest Gulf of Mexico, and then everyone in blue is considered to be average ACE, okay? Just an average chance of having typical activity for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. But the analogous season for them was when Dorian went through the Bahamas. And we all can probably remember what happened on Grand Bahama with Dorian. What they're talking about is storms here, well east, gaining north latitude quickly and then pushing due west, okay? So pushing due west or recurving up the eastern seaboard, but these storms gaining north latitude quickly in the Atlantic basin and then having more of a west track rather than developing here and pushing north, or developing here like Milton did and pushing to the north and to the east. By the way, I don't know if I have the graphic in here or not, but Beryl, Helene, and Milton have been retired, if you didn't hear, right? They'll be replaced by 3 different names in the 2030 list. The Hurricane Center, rotates those lists every 6 years. So the 2024 list from last year will come up again in 2030, but no more Beryl, Helene, and Milton. We will continue to see, hey Kojak, how you doing? New Smyrna Beach in the house, appreciate you. We'll continue to see our frequency peak all the way up until September 10th. So building tropical storm and hurricane potential through September 10th. That's the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. It does fall off through mid-October, but picks back up again. There's a little notch towards late October. We kind of get a secondary peak, if you will, in mid to late October before hopefully falls off very quickly through November. But again, especially as those tropical waves hold together off the west coast of Africa beginning late July and August, that's when we really see the frequency pick up. But again, any storms that develop here in June are very close to home. So keep that in mind as well. And this is what I was just talking about. I wasn't sure whether I actually brought this in or not, but here you go. So Beryl, Helene, and Milton, goodbye. They'll be replaced by Brianna, Holly, and Miguel in 2030. And I think that's the last graphic I have as far as that goes. So the last thing I want to do is go back over to the weather computer and talk about what the GFS model is showing for the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to go back over here, bring up the GFS. And again, if you're just tuning in live here during the 1 o'clock hour, the Hurricane Center has actually issued their first potential development area off of our East Coast. Potentially in the next few days developing here, but then moving away from the area. It would bring more coastal opportunities than anything else. And what I mean by that is probably some larger waves, some stronger winds, maybe some beach erosion. You know, I'll delve into it over the next couple of days, but it's interesting that underneath all this activity that I've been talking about, if there can get a little bit of a spin there out out east, there is an opportunity that, you know, it could become something tropical. Now, maybe you guys have been tuning in to various outlets or to myself over on the Media Mundo channel where, you know, we've been looking at what the GFS has been trying to show in the Caribbean kind of about this time next week, and then what it could bring into the Gulf in the second week of June. First things first, the GFS really generally overemphasizes the activity in the Western Caribbean in early June, right? It bombs these storms out more than what typically happens. It doesn't mean that we should fully dismiss this. We have to really keep and pay attention to it. But just so you know, there is an inherent bias on the GFS model for making convection and storms in the Western Caribbean much larger and more intense than what they end up being. So localized convection here in the Western Caribbean gets blown up into a tropical system more than not. And this is exactly what we're seeing here on the GFS model. So again, as we get towards this next weekend and as we push into next Monday, you'll start to see a spin developing here into the Northwest Caribbean. That just gains latitude and moves north as we get into the second week of June. Something to obviously monitor, but you can clearly see that, you know, is out there. Now look, there is some model support from the European model with this as well, which is why I'm saying there's in no way, shape, or form am I saying don't worry about this. We're completely dismissing it. I'm just letting you know that there is an inherent bias from the GFS, and it's well known. Any credible meteorologist is going to mention this if they're going to be talking about this potential system. And there's just a known bias that the GFS blows up this, you know, potentially localized convection in the Caribbean this time of the year. It makes a lot more than what it's going to be. This is the spin in the atmosphere. It's a composite of the lower levels on the GFS model. First of all, you notice that there's already a secondary orange area in the East Pacific. We've already had Alvin. Now the East Pacific season begins on May 15th, so they could get their second named storm sometime this week. But when you look at this low level spin, again, coming your way the 9th and the 10th, you'll start to see that there is some true low level spin associated with this into the South Central Gulf by about the 12th. Okay, so this will be the area that I'll be monitoring. Now, you notice I haven't mentioned a ton of what might be happening here because, again, this is new, but I think anything that develops here, and it's still just a 10% chance, it's weak. And more than likely, if this thing were to wrap up into a true low-level center, it's going to be doing so as it's trying to push well away from our area. Again, potentially initially, we could have some elevated beach hazards associated with it, but I'm not overtly concerned about what I see out of that as I've been monitoring the tropics here over the last month anyway. So interesting about that. Okay, friends, anyone have any specific questions about the forecast? Again, if you are just tuning in, please get prepared for some very active weather here in Central Florida. Showers and storms are pushing along the west coast at the hour. So we're going to get some wet weather for the Port Charlotte, Bradenton, Sarasota area, right up towards St. Pete across the Skyway and into Tampa Bay. non-severe, but some wet weather there, and then the redevelopment of storms later today along our east coast. I-95 that will backbuild west towards I-4, and it is those areas in the darker green with the opportunity for some strong to severe storms later today. Obviously, if it's necessary, I'll be back on live here on the Central Florida Weather Channel tracking those storms for you live. But again, just get prepared for wet and stormy conditions. If for some reason things behave themselves, obviously the next chance I'll see you guys will be Friday at 1 o'clock for the next CFLW The Show. As always, CFLW The Show is sponsored by the leading law firm of Central Florida. They're hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. We're in hurricane season now, friends. And so when a storm rolls through your area, doesn't have to be a hurricane or tropical storm, could be one of these storms we're talking about over the next few days. They cause hail damage, wind damage to your house. You have a burst pipe. They can walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. They do offer free consultation and policy reviews. Please go to leanonmelaw.com if you would like more information. One last look real quickly at the enhanced satellite imagery and temperatures across the area, which are going to be in the 70s down south and just into the 80s up north. But all of this rich moisture-laden air situated just off to the south is going to be spinning north, providing us a very good chance for storms the remainder of the week. Friends, as we leave today, I appreciate you taking a quick second and liking this live stream, subscribing to the channel. If you want more Caribbean updates, if you go to the homepage of the CFLW YouTube channel, you can find the links to the Media Mundo channel and the other channel I do called Weather Express. It's a 5-minute forecast across the United States. Appreciate you guys subscribing to this channel as well. Again, you can watch this in the recorded version. When I get done with this, it becomes a recorded video on the live tab here of the CFLW channel. Friends, have a great rest of your day. I'll be monitoring the situation. If necessary, if warranted, I'll be back live covering these storms for you live here on CFLW. And if for some reason not, I'll see you guys Friday at 1 o'clock for the next edition of CFLW The Show. Until I next see you, friends, take care, stay safe.